Imagine waking up tomorrow morning and realizing that you have suddenly become completely immune to every single form of physical pain. You could walk through fire or step on a pile of sharp glass without even flinching or feeling a tiny bit. At first glance, this sounds like the ultimate superpower that would turn you into a real-life version of a superhero. No more headaches after a long day of work, and no more agonizing cramps that keep you up late at night. But before you start celebrating your new invincibility, you need to understand the dark and terrifying side of this strange condition. Pain is not actually your enemy, but rather a sophisticated biological alarm system designed to keep you alive and very healthy. Without that constant feedback loop from your nerves, your brain has absolutely no way of knowing when your body is dying. There is a real medical condition known as congenital insensitivity to pain, or CIP, which affects a tiny handful of people. People born with this rare genetic mutation live in a world where the concept of physical suffering simply does not exist. Imagine a toddler who falls down a flight of stairs and gets right back up with a broken arm and smiles. They might be bleeding profusely from a deep wound, but they will continue playing as if nothing had ever happened at all. Because their brain never receives the signal that something is wrong, they never learn to avoid dangerous or life-threatening situations. Think about the last time you accidentally touched a hot stove and your hand pulled away before you even realized it. That split-second reaction is your nervous system saving your skin from permanent damage and deep scarring that would last forever. For someone who cannot feel pain, that protective reflex simply does not exist, and they would just let their hand burn. They could stand there smelling their own flesh cooking without realizing that they are currently suffering from a third-degree burn. This is where the dream of being a superhero quickly turns into a gruesome and repetitive nightmare for those living with it. Children with this condition often chew through their own tongues or lips while teething because they do not feel the trauma. They might accidentally scratch their eyes so deeply that they become permanently blind because they do not feel the initial irritation. Every single meal becomes a potential hazard because they could easily bite down on their own cheek and keep on chewing. Internal injuries are even more dangerous because there are no outward signs of the silent destruction happening deep inside your body. Your appendix could be on the verge of exploding right now, but you would feel perfectly fine until it was too late. You could have a severe kidney stone or a massive internal infection, and you would just go about your day normally. Pain is the voice of your organs screaming for help when they are under attack by disease or sudden physical trauma. Without that voice, you are essentially flying a plane through a thick storm without any of the dashboard instruments working correctly. You wouldn't know if your bones were fracturing under the weight of your own body as you walk down the street. Many people with CIP suffer from severe joint deformities because they put too much stress on their limbs without feeling it. They might walk on a twisted ankle for miles until the bone literally starts to protrude through the skin and muscle. Imagine the smell of infection being the only way you realize that a small cut on your foot has turned gangrenous. By the time you notice the discoloration or the foul odor, the only medical option left might be a full amputation. This is why parents of children who cannot feel pain have to check their bodies every single night for new injuries. They have to look for bruises, cuts, or broken bones that the child didn't even notice while playing at the park. A simple fever becomes a terrifying mystery because it could be caused by anything from a common cold. In a world without pain, you are constantly at war with an invisible enemy that you can never see. You are essentially a glass statue that is slowly shattering into pieces. Your brain lacks the fundamental survival instinct that has kept the human race alive for millions of years of evolution. Going to the gym would become a lethal gamble because you could tear every muscle in your body without noticing it. A heart attack would feel like nothing more than a slight shortness of breath as your cardiac tissue slowly begins dying. You are essentially a high-performance machine with the check engine light removed and the warning sensors completely cut off. The psychological toll of living in constant fear of your own body becomes an exhausting burden that never truly goes away. You would find it impossible to empathize with the suffering of others because you have no personal reference for physical agony. Watching a loved one cry in pain would feel like watching a movie in a foreign language without any translated subtitles. Imagine needing surgery and having to stay wide awake while the doctors cut into your chest because you could watch the scalpel slice through your skin and feel the cold steel against your ribs without any physical reaction. Frostbite would claim your fingers and toes during a winter walk, and you would only notice when they turned black and fell. Sunburns would turn into blistering second-degree wounds because your skin provides no warning that it is literally being cooked alive. You would start to look like a walking disaster zone covered in scars and bandages from injuries you cannot even remember. Even sleeping is dangerous because you might lie in one position for so long that you cut off your own circulation. Bed sores would rot your flesh down to the bone because your body never tells you to roll over and adjust yourself. The very thing you thought was a gift is actually a curse that forces you to live in a plastic bubble. An abscessed tooth could poison your entire bloodstream and you would never feel the throbbing warning sign of a major infection. A tiny piece of dust in your eye could scratch your cornea until you were blind because you never felt itchy. In a fight, you would be a terrifying opponent, but you would likely die from internal bleeding shortly after the victory. Without pain, your body does not release the same rush of adrenaline that helps humans survive extreme and life-threatening encounters. Your life would revolve around a strict schedule of checking every inch of your skin for new holes or dark bruises. Even simple things like using the bathroom become dangerous because you cannot feel if something is wrong with your internal systems. Drinking a cup of boiling coffee would destroy your throat and esophagus before you even realized the liquid was too hot. You would never know when to rest because your muscles never get sore and your joints never send a signal. Eventually, your skeletal structure would simply collapse under the weight of accumulated microfractures that never had the chance to heal. You are like a ghost inhabiting a physical shell that is slowly falling apart while you watch from the inside, helplessly. Some scientists believe that without the ability to feel pain, your ability to feel intense physical pleasure might also be dampened. The neural pathways for pain and pleasure are closely linked, and losing one often means the other is severely compromised too. The average life expectancy for someone who cannot feel pain is significantly lower than that of a normal, healthy human being. It is truly a death by 1,000 cuts, where every minor accident adds up to a final and fatal system failure. Imagine hitting your thumb with a heavy hammer and feeling absolutely nothing but the vibration of the impact against your bone. You would hear the sickening crack of your own bones breaking, but your mind would remain eerily calm and totally unbothered. That disconnect between what your eyes see and what your brain feels is enough to drive a person into deep insanity. You begin to realize that every sting, every burn, and every ache was a gift from evolution to keep you safe. The next time you stub your toe and scream in agony, try to remember that your body is actually protecting you. Pain is the red light on the dashboard that tells you to stop before the entire engine explodes in a fire. You would never truly understand the concept of physical boundaries because your body lacks the essential language of warning signs. Every step you take could be grinding your hip joints into dust without you ever realizing the permanent damage occurring. Without the sensation of pain, you would likely lose all your teeth before the age of 30 due to hidden infections. Your skin would become a patchwork of scars and mystery bruises that tell a story of a life lived in danger. Imagine walking through a blizzard and not knowing your ears are literally freezing and falling off your head right now. You would be the ultimate soldier in a war, but you would likely die from a small scratch that turned septic. The absence of pain is not the presence of comfort, but rather the absence of the most vital survival instinct. You would have to set alarms every hour just to check if you are bleeding or if your bones are broken. The simple act of sitting down could result in a pressure sore that eventually rots your flesh to the bone. You are essentially a high-tech computer that has had its entire cooling system and emergency shutoff switches removed forever. Every meal would be a gamble because you could swallow a sharp bone that tears your internal organs apart silently. You would never feel the satisfaction of a deep stretch or the relief of sitting down after a long day. Your life would be a series of medical appointments to find the injuries that you are too numb to feel. People might envy your toughness, but they would never understand the sheer terror of not knowing if you are dying. You would be forced to live a life of extreme caution and boredom just to ensure that you survive another day. The world would become a minefield where every sharp corner and hot surface is a potential end to your life. Your brain would be trapped in a sensory vacuum where the most important biological feedback loop has been cut off. You might feel like a god for a few days, but you would soon realize you are actually the most vulnerable. Without the sting of a burn, you would never learn to respect the power of fire and its destructive nature. You would eventually view your own body as a foreign object that you must constantly monitor like a failing machine. The psychological isolation of being unable to share the universal human experience of suffering would eventually break your mind completely. You would watch your friends complain about small cuts and feel a deep sense of jealousy for their protective pain. Pain is the invisible thread that connects your physical self to the reality of the dangerous world around you today. To live without pain is to live without the very mechanism that has allowed humanity to survive for millions of years. You are a walking miracle of biology, but without your nerves, you are just a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. So the next time you feel a sharp pang of discomfort, remember that it is your body saying, "I love you." It is the sound of your survival system working perfectly to ensure that you live to see another beautiful morning. Embrace the ache and the sting because they are the only things standing between you and a very silent end. Being invincible sounds like a dream, but in reality it is the most terrifying nightmare a human could ever experience. Be grateful for every bit of pain you feel because it is the only thing truly keeping you alive right now.